Howdy y'all, it is Cody from the Keepers of Nerdom. How you doing? Just gonna do some gameplay really quickly to get some daily challenges done, and gotta deal damage while in a vehicle. That shouldn't be too hard. Just get on a bike or a truck and pop somebody in a town, I guess. But just wanted to touch base a little bit. I recently just made a video on the Mandalorian Season 3 Episode 4. Giving it very, high praise, and then it's interesting when you go and listen to other people's perspectives how much different sometimes their perspectives are to yours. I thought, this would be just kind of a fun little thing to talk about while, playing some Fortnite, not really needing to do a whole lot paying attention on this. So, the thing I actually listened to is actually the Angry Joe show, and one of the things I did notice that really is bizarre to me is that they were gung-ho that the previous episode was much better than this one. And that shocks me a bit, because the last episode was, quite frankly, in my opinion, very bad. And this one at least was a return to form. But then they proceeded to talk through, and one of the things they pointed out was just the incompetence of the Mandalorians themselves in order to, in essence, make Bo-Katan look smarter than them. And in my initial review, I did hit on that, and having heard their perspective, I'm actually glad I heard their perspective, because there's some accuracy there that I wasn't thinking about, because I was so paid attention to the fact that we finally have a story that's actually about the Mandalorian in some fashion, right? That it's actually something meaningful, because he's actually present this time. And they were right, though, that there's a lot where these Mandalorians that are shown are, quite frankly, just, I guess the word really just means incompetent, because they're bizarre. They do things, or lack thereof, like they don't think about the fact that they have some fuel needs. And that's really interesting to me, right? It's really interesting. So, needless to say, we're just going to keep playing a little bit. It's a bizarre thing. Like, why is it that those Mandalorians were incompetent? And it really doesn't make sense if they're supposed to be like these super warriors that are following the way, quote unquote, and what they're actually doing is being even worse than the Empire often is portrayed in intellect. So, rather interesting, take on this whole concept. And unfortunately, it doesn't actually lend itself well. But I will definitely defend that this episode is better than the previous one. The previous episode was mostly separate story, setting up potentially other things, but it could actually be setting up nothing. And the fact that we sat through a film, or an episode where not much of anything really happened, for a lot of it was just so boring. And I love a slow burn story when it's a good story. I mean, I have watched through some shows that are just slow burns that have very little, like, low energy there, low interest level going on, and they've been way more interesting than this. Like, this was not good. It just wasn't. It literally was. That episode 3 was bad, right? It was just bad. Yeah, I'm trying to really just give you any other thoughts here, because it's a bizarre thing that we've seen here in The Mandalorian. I don't know that after listening that I would say, yes, this is like the most epic episode of all time ever that I was totally on board with, but I will say I think it still is a much better episode, but there are some issues and concerns there. And it should be addressed. It should be handled. Why are the Mandalorians so... Well, I mean, how to best explain it? Like, why are the Mandalorians so silly when it comes to nobody else thinks to get in a ship to follow this thing? And they do even acknowledge, like, this thing has apparently taken many, many kids. That, like, they've mentioned that this has happened before. And when you hit that, like, okay, now, at what point do you go, okay, we need to, like, not let this happen again, because these are our kids. And we're literally at a race that, like, a people group that's just almost gone. And that's a bizarre thing. Like, why in the world is this happening? So I don't know. It's a bizarre thing. I don't have a good answer for, and it frustrates me when you stop to process that. They are urgently trying to rescue someone, and then they stop and literally, like, pause everything just to take... Yeah, and this was another point that Angry Joe did make, that they literally say, oh, this is very urgent, this needs to happen now, and then all of a sudden it's not urgent at all, to the point of we're going to spend the night and not scale a cliff until tomorrow. That's a problem, right? That's a serious problem. Why are you waiting, especially when you find out that it is Jon Favreau's character's son in the show, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a good point, that you're not waiting till the next day. That's silly. That's really silly. So I think overall, like, there's obviously some issues here, right? And they need to be talked about, but I think to say that this is a worse episode than the other one that had nothing about Mandalorian except for the very beginning and the very end, no, that's silly. That is really silly. That logic does not add up. It's like, literally, you watched paint dry with nothing happening in it at all, and easy solutions that could have been made more sense than what was portrayed, right? And instead we get just a joke of an episode, and they're saying, oh, that one was better. So overall, I am just really saddened by what we're seeing in The Mandalorian. It's a silly moment that we're getting anymore, and this last episode I enjoyed, and I came away from it enjoying it. But then when you listen to some critique of it, you're like, okay, there is some serious concern here that should be addressed. And the fact that there's some logic pieces that weren't addressed is bizarre. It's confusing. It makes me wonder, where are they trying to go with their concept here? And I don't have an answer. So, anyway, those are some of my big things. Apparently, I'm about to get bonked by somebody. I guess we'll go fight them real quick and call it a day. Oh, this guy is, like, wanting blood. Now you're not. So yeah, we'll probably cut it off here in just a little bit, let it play out for a little while. It's kind of fun. And yeah, that's the big thing I wanted to talk about randomly. I think it was just an important note of just detail, and unfortunately I'm just really sad that the writers aren't thinking through all the logic issues that are present in such a good show, or at least has been such a good show, and then the fact that people are that divided over just the reality of how this functions. It's just bizarre. And I don't know. Wasn't really paying attention right there either. That's okay. That one was on me. My mistake. But that's my thoughts, Star Wars is in a rough spot. I thought episode 4 was a much better episode than the one before, and then we see Angry Joe going, no, the other one was really good comparatively to this one, and I would say you'd be hard-pressed to really make that case, but this episode does have more problems than I gave it credit for, too. So, I've been Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. Let me know down in the comments below what you think as well. Take care. Bye.